The campaign group Just Stop Oil have won widespread attention after disrupting Sunday's Formula One Grand Prix. A small group of protesters from the group stormed the racetrack before being removed by police. And the following day, a representative from the group was grilled by former Shadow Chancellor Ed Balls. Now, to my mind, Balls made a bit of a fool of himself. Let's take a look.
When you think of the great protest movements and the civil disobedience of the last 100 years, like the suffragettes, or the campaign Gandhi for Indian independence, or the civil rights movement, or the Pride campaign for equality for people of all sexualities in our country. I mean, what do you learn from their campaigns?
Well, as you will well know, they all took disruptive action. Like, we wouldn't be in the place that we are in society if those groups hadn't taken the action that they took. What your audience need to understand...
But the other thing was that they actually were quite clever at getting public opinion on their side. And I wonder how that's going. That's
patently not true, Ed, is it? Like, these groups were some of the most unpopular groups of their time. What your audience need to understand is that we're being systematically lied to. The government has no intention of dealing with this crisis. They are under the behest of big business and corporate interests. And corporate media like yourselves are also complicit with this.
Your colleague last week, Emily Brocklebank, when she glued herself to a Van Gogh painting, and you've also kind of disrupted Premier League games, she said, we can't live in a bubble of normality when society is collapsing around us. Mm-hmm. Isn't the point of your campaign that you aren't targeting all companies or the government? What you're targeting is anybody who is living in this bubble of normality. Anybody living a normal life is your target. And actually, the problem is, who are the kind of people...
The problem is...
Let me finish my point. I'll ask you a question. I'll ask you a question and you answer.
If we do not make our protest visible,
but
it doesn't get covered by the media.
Who are the people in society who target people going about their normal lives to affect their campaign? That isn't Gandhi. That isn't the civil rights movement. That's what terrorism is. You target people's normal lives as a way of changing things. It doesn't feel very non-violent to me.
How dare you conflate us with terrorism?
Well, it doesn't feel very non-violent to me. Maybe facts don't care about your feelings, Ed Balls. And it was also, really, really bizarre to ask people who interrupted a race why they don't just learn from the suffragettes. Like, didn't Ed Balls learn about Emily Davidson at school? I swear that was like on my GCSEs. Her throwing herself in front of the King's Horse at Epsom is literally the most famous thing the suffragettes did. That's like history 101 when it comes to how social movements achieve their ends in this country. Ash, what did you make of that exchange?
That Ed Balls is a prick. I'm sorry. He's either idiotic, malevolent, or both. As you said, the suffragettes undertook incredibly disruptive action. They were subject to huge amounts of state violence and repression, including imprisonment and force feeding. Emily Davidson threw herself in front of the King's Horse. They were subject to a media smear campaign. The same with Gandhi, subject to huge smear campaigns in the British press. And if you want to talk about the civil rights movement, they were not particularly good at getting the public, as in a white majority public, on their side. You had a majority of people who thought that the Freedom Riders hurt the cause of desegregation. 57% of people thought that diner sit-ins hurt the cause of desegregation. And by the time of his death, I think something like 2/3 to 3/4 of Americans had a negative opinion of Martin Luther King. Now, we look back on that time as something of a social miracle. They did the unimaginable, the undreamable, the unthinkable, and brought an end to segregation in the South. The same with the anti-apartheid movement, hugely unpopular amongst white South Africans, indeed quite unpopular amongst some white British people as well. Margaret Thatcher. Now, the point is that whenever you have a extra parliamentary movement, is that you do always have more militant wings, which take an awful lot of the fire in terms of state blowback, imprisonment, and media smear campaigns. And you have a wider civil society mobilization as well. You need both things to make the thing work. Now, I wouldn't expect a Good Morning Britain host, even if it is Ed Balls, former Labour MP, to necessarily know all of that. But to outright lie about those histories in order to present this poor Just Stop Oil protester, who I thought did a really good job in terms of handling a very hostile media environment. What a Good Morning Britain presenter's role is to essentially treat this protester as a Christian, and him and his co-presenters in the audience are the lions. It's about a spectacle of tearing someone to shreds for the temerity of having beliefs. And I think that it is shameful that Ed Balls was ever part of this so-called progressive party like Labour, and that as recently as the Wakefield by-election, he was tipped to make a return to politics. Somebody who is unable and is that intellectually either ignorant or dishonest to approach a climate change movement in the way that he is, has absolutely no place in politics at all. It's endangering the lives of everybody on this planet. So TLDR, Ed Balls is a prick.
Okay, that's a good conclusion. I like that TLDR. I agree. And I think with all of these protests, I mean, kind of my view is, if what people are saying to you is we agree with your cause, we just don't agree with the way you're trying to achieve it, you are winning, right? I think quite rightly, the people who are part of these Just Stop Oil or Insulate Britain protests, it doesn't matter whether people like you or not. As you've just explained very articulately there, Ash, most of these movements that change stuff, people didn't like the people doing it. But if they're talking about the issue, if they've said, I agree with what you're trying to achieve, I just don't like the way you're doing it, you've won already. And I think the fact that that's essentially what Ed Balls was saying there, even though he's incredibly ill-informed in everything else he said, that shows that Just Stop Oil protest was worth it. So, kudos. All of us here at Novara Media are working harder than ever to keep scrutinizing establishment politicians and the media barons who protect them. We don't have billionaire funders. We don't have advertising partnerships. We're funded entirely by you. If you've ever thought about supporting us, now's the time to go to novaramedia.com/support and donate anything you can from just £1 per month. Defy the corporate media. Join our monthly supporters and help build our supporter base to 10,000 strong.